The massive station hung in space like a metal city. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at its ports. Inside the Grand Council chamber, Ambassador Hyunwoo walked slowly toward the center platform. His black diplomatic suit felt heavy under the stares of hundreds of alien eyes. Behind him, military advisor So Young kept her face calm. She carried a small metal case that held humanity's gift to the Galactic Confederation. The case seemed so simple compared to the floating crystals and glowing orbs the other species had brought. "The species known as humans requests recognition," announced the chamber's voice system. The words echoed in the vast room. Hyunwoo stopped at the speaking platform. Around him, the council members sat in their special seats. The Valerian Empire delegates looked like tall blue giants with 4 arms. Their leader, General Vex Kai, had scars across his face from many battles. The Nexari collective members appeared as floating brains in glass domes, their thoughts visible as colored lights. At the highest seat sat Council Leader Thex-9. His species, the Zephyrians, looked like gray humanoids with large heads and black eyes. He had ruled this council for over 200 years. "Humans of Earth," Thex-9 spoke with a bored voice. "You come from a small world in what you call the Milky Way. Your technology assessment shows you have barely left your home system. Why should the Confederation accept such a primitive species?" Hyunwoo had practiced this moment many times. "Honored Council, humanity offers our friendship and our knowledge. We may be young among the stars, but we have learned much about survival and innovation." Several alien council members made sounds that might have been laughter. A Valerian delegate whispered loudly, "Innovation? They still use chemical rockets." So Young stepped forward and opened the metal case. Inside sat a small device no bigger than a human hand. It looked like a simple metal tube with wires and small parts attached. "This is a demonstration model of our kinetic acceleration technology," Hyunwoo said. "We call it a railgun." The chamber fell quiet for a moment. Then the laughter began. General Vex Kai stood up, his forearms spreading wide. "Did they just say they throw metal objects at their enemies?" His voice boomed across the chamber. "We have weapons that can tear apart molecules. We have plasma cannons that burn at the temperature of stars. And these humans, they throw rocks?" A Nexari collective member's dome flashed bright red with amusement. "Our particle beam weapons can cut through any known material in the galaxy. These humans present us with..." "What? A metal tube that shoots solid matter?" Thex-9 raised one gray hand for silence. "Humans, your gesture is quaint. But the Confederation has moved far beyond primitive kinetic weapons. Our members possess energy-based armaments that make physical projectiles obsolete." Hyunwoo felt his heart sink, but he kept his voice steady. "Honored Council, perhaps a demonstration would help explain the effectiveness of our technology." "A demonstration?" Another Valerian delegate laughed so hard he nearly fell from his seat. "What will you do? Throw a pebble at our ships?" So Young connected the small railgun to a power source she pulled from the case. The device hummed quietly. "This model fires a small tungsten projectile," she explained. "The electromagnetic acceleration allows us to achieve significant velocity." "Electromagnetic?" A Nexari member's dome flickered with interest for just a moment. "How primitive. We abandoned magnetic acceleration technology 3,000 years ago." Thex-9 waved his hand dismissively. "Humans, we appreciate your effort. But solid projectiles cannot penetrate modern shield technology. Our energy barriers can stop any physical object." Hyunwoo tried once more. "The velocity achieved by our railguns is quite substantial. The kinetic energy transfer upon impact." "Kinetic energy?" General Vex Kai interrupted. "Young humans, let me educate you about real weapons." He activated a holographic display that showed a massive plasma cannon. "This weapon channels stellar-level temperatures into a focused beam. It can melt through a mountain in seconds. Your little metal thrower cannot compete with such power." The demonstration continued as various species showed off their advanced weapons. The Draconic Hegemony representative displayed antimatter torpedoes. The Crystalline Syndicate showed weapons that turned matter into pure energy. Each presentation made humanity's railgun seem more primitive by comparison. So Young tried to explain the physics behind their weapon. "The projectile velocity approaches a significant fraction of light speed. When it strikes a target, the kinetic energy release is enormous." A young Nexari scientist's dome pulsed with mild curiosity. "Interesting theoretical application, but practically useless against modern defenses." Our shields deflect energy, absorb matter, and redirect force vectors. Physical projectiles are simply not a threat. The council session dragged on for hours. Hyunwoo answered countless questions about human culture, technology, and intentions. But every time the conversation turned to military capability, the aliens dismissed humanity's weapons as ancient curiosities. During a break, So-young whispered to Hyunwoo, "They're not even trying to understand. They see metal projectiles and assume obsolescence. Their overconfidence might be our advantage someday," Hyunwoo replied quietly. "But for now, we need their acceptance." When the session resumed, Thex 9 delivered the Council's decision. Humans of Earth, the Galactic Confederation grants you observer status. You may establish an embassy and participate in cultural exchanges. However, your military technology is deemed insufficient for defensive partnerships or security arrangements. General Vex Kai added with amusement, "When you develop real weapons, energy-based systems that can challenge galactic standard defenses, perhaps we can discuss military cooperation. Until then, your kinetic toys are merely historical artifacts." The Nexari Collective's lead scientist's dome glowed with condescending brightness. "We suggest focusing your research on plasma dynamics or particle acceleration. Solid projectile weapons have no place in modern warfare." As the council session ended, Hyunwoo felt a mix of disappointment and determination. Humanity had gained a foothold in galactic society, but their military capabilities were completely dismissed. So-young packed the railgun demonstration model back into its case. Around them, alien delegates chatted about the amusing primitives from Earth who still threw metal objects at their enemies. Walking back to their shuttle, Hyunwoo noticed how the aliens looked at them, like adults watching children play with toy swords. The condescending smiles and barely hidden laughter followed them through the station corridors. "They'll remember this day," So-young said quietly as they boarded their ship. "Why?" Hyunwoo asked. "Because they had the chance to take us seriously, and they chose to laugh instead." The human shuttle departed the station, carrying 2 diplomats who had just witnessed the galaxy's greatest mistake. The Confederation had judged humanity's weapons by their appearance rather than their capabilities. This error in judgment would soon prove catastrophic for everyone involved. Behind them, the council members filed reports dismissing human military technology as primitive kinetic weapons, suitable only for archaeological study. They would live to regret their arrogance. 6 months after first contact, Engineer Ji-hoon stood on the observation deck of Kepler Station. The massive trading post floated in neutral space, far from any single government's control. Ships from across the galaxy docked here daily to trade goods and information. Ji-hoon watched a convoy of human freighters unload supplies at the far docking bay. The ships looked small and plain compared to the elegant alien vessels around them. But he knew what those simple-looking ships carried in their cargo holds. "Still thinking about home?" asked physicist Naeun as she joined him at the viewing window. She carried a data pad filled with reports from human colonies. "Always," Ji-hoon replied. "How are the frontier settlements doing?" Naeun's expression darkened. "That's what worries me. 3 more colonies reported strange ships in their systems this week. Long-range sensors show military formations, but they disappear before anyone can identify them." Both humans had been stationed at the embassy for months now. Their official job was to help with technology exchanges and cultural learning. But lately they spent more time worrying about disturbing news from human space. The draconic hegemony had been expanding aggressively for the past year. Their reptilian warriors conquered world after world, claiming they brought order to chaos. Most galactic powers ignored them, thinking the draconics would eventually slow down or face serious resistance. Ji-hoon pulled up a star map on his wrist display. Red dots marked draconic-controlled systems. The pattern showed clear movement toward human territory. "Look at this expansion path. They're not random conquests. This is a planned advance toward our colonies." Naeun studied the map. "Have you shown this to the Confederation Council?" "3 times. Each time they tell me that human colonies are too far from civilized space to matter. They think the draconics will stop before reaching important systems." A deep rumbling sound filled the station as a massive warship docked. Through the window, they could see the angular black hull of a draconic battlecruiser. Its weapons ports glowed with barely contained energy, and its hull bore the scars of recent battles. "They're getting bolder," Naeun whispered. "A year ago, Draconic ships wouldn't dare dock at neutral stations. Commander Vashtor emerged from the ship's boarding ramp. The 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior wore ceremonial armor that gleamed under the station's lights. His red eyes scanned the docking bay like a predator searching for prey. Ji-hoon and Na-yoon hurried to the embassy level. They needed to report this development immediately. The human embassy consisted of just 4 rooms in the station's diplomatic section. It looked tiny compared to the massive spaces given to major galactic powers. Captain Taeho was already in the main office, speaking rapidly into a communication device. His uniform showed the signs of a man who had been traveling between human colonies for weeks without rest. "Captain," Ji-hoon called out. "What's the situation?" Taeho finished his transmission and turned to them. His face looked tired and worried. "The Draconics just attacked the Harmony system. 3 human colonies completely destroyed. No survivors." Na-yoon felt her stomach drop. "The Council needs to know immediately." "I've been trying to reach them for hours," Taeho said. "They're in session, but their security keeps saying human concerns are low-priority matters." Ji-hoon accessed the embassy's main computer and pulled up tactical recordings from Taeho's ship. The footage showed Draconic warships firing massive energy beams at human settlements. The weapons burned through defensive barriers like they were made of paper. "Captain, do we have any combat footage? Anything showing human defenses fighting back?" "Some," Taeho replied grimly. "The mining station at Kepler 442b had a small security ship. Watch this." The recording showed a small human vessel facing 3 Draconic fighters. The human ship fired what looked like simple metal projectiles, but the camera couldn't track their speed. 2 Draconic fighters exploded instantly. The third fled in panic. "Did you show this to the Council?" Na-yoon asked. "I tried. They wouldn't even watch it." General Vex Kai said that Draconic fighters must have had equipment failures. He claimed no kinetic weapon could penetrate their energy shields. The 3 humans worked through the night preparing a detailed report. They gathered evidence of Draconic aggression, documented the expanding threat, and compiled tactical data showing human defensive capabilities. Every piece of information painted the same picture. The Draconics were systematically moving toward human space, and humanity's weapons were more effective than anyone realized. The next morning, they finally gained access to the Galactic Council chamber. Taeho stood at the speaker's platform while Ji-hoon and Na-yoon operated the presentation equipment. "Honored Council," Taeho began, "the Draconic hegemony has launched unprovoked attacks on human colonies. We request immediate defensive support and formal condemnation of these aggressive acts." Council Leader Thex-9 looked bored. "Captain, the Draconics claim they are bringing order to lawless frontier regions. Their expansion has been vigorous but not unprecedented. They've killed thousands of innocent colonists," Taeho said, his voice rising slightly. General Vex Kai laughed from his seat. "Captain, your colonies are barely defended. A few security ships with primitive weapons cannot protect frontier settlements from determined attackers." "Our weapons are more effective than you think," Taeho replied. He activated the tactical display. This footage shows human ships successfully engaging Draconic forces. The recording played on the chamber's main screen. The room watched as human projectile weapons destroyed Draconic fighters in seconds. But instead of amazement, the Council members showed skeptical amusement. "Clearly malfunctioning enemy equipment," declared a Nexari collective representative. "Draconic shields should easily deflect solid projectiles." "The fighters must have had power failures," added another delegate. "No kinetic weapon can penetrate modern defensive systems." Taeho tried to explain the physics of railgun impacts, but the Council wouldn't listen. They had decided that human weapons were primitive, and no evidence would change their minds. Intelligence Officer Min-soo entered the chamber quietly and approached the human delegation. He whispered urgently to Taeho, who went pale. "Honored Council," Taeho announced, "I've just received word that a massive Draconic fleet has been detected moving toward the new Sol system. Our largest colony is under direct threat." Thex-9 made a dismissive gesture.
"Captain, if your colonies had proper defenses, real energy-based weapons, the Draconics would not dare attack them."
"Perhaps this crisis will motivate humanity to develop actual military technology." General Vex Kai stood up. "The Confederation cannot waste resources defending colonies armed with ancient kinetic weapons. When humans acquire plasma cannons and particle beams, we can discuss mutual defense treaties." The council session ended with polite dismissals and empty promises to monitor the situation. As the human delegation left the chamber, they could hear alien delegates joking about metal-throwing primitives who expected protection they hadn't earned. Ji-hoon, Na-eun, and Taeho walked silently back to their embassy. Behind them, the most advanced civilization in the galaxy continued to ignore the greatest threat it had ever faced, all because they couldn't see past their own technological prejudices. Admiral Kyung-soo stood on the bridge of the UN Defender, watching the edge of the new Sol system through the main display. His fleet of 12 ships waited in defensive formation around humanity's most important colony. The planet below held 8 million people who had built new lives among the stars. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures," reported his communications officer. "The Draconic fleet is dropping out of faster-than-light travel." Kyung-soo had been expecting this moment for weeks. Intelligence reports showed the Draconics gathering their largest war fleet in centuries. Over 100 ships, including their most powerful battleships. They came to crush humanity's colonial heart. All ships, battle stations, charge the main railgun batteries to full power. On the planet's surface, Commander Haiwan watched her troops take defensive positions around the capital city. The colonists had been evacuated to underground shelters, leaving the streets empty except for human soldiers and their equipment. "Commander," called Lieutenant Dong-woo from his communication post. "Admiral Kyung-soo reports the Draconic fleet has arrived. 117 ships." Haiwan looked up at the sky through her helmet display. Tiny points of light moved between the stars as the space battle began. Her ground forces couldn't help with the fleet action, but if any Draconic ships broke through, they would be ready. In space, the enemy fleet spread across the system like a dark cloud. Draconic battleships stretched for kilometers, their hulls covered in weapon ports and energy projectors. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Commander Grakvash led the Draconic attack from his flagship. The massive reptilian warrior had conquered 43 worlds in his career. His bridge officers prepared their most devastating weapons as they approached the human defensive line. Primitives with metal-throwing devices. Grakvash laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "This will be easier than our last dozen conquests. Charge plasma cannons to maximum power." The Draconic fleet formed attack groups, each one larger than the entire human defense force. Their ships moved with practiced precision, having used the same tactics against countless other species. "Human vessels," Grakvash broadcast on all frequencies, "surrender now and we will grant your colonists quick deaths. Resist, and we will make their suffering legendary throughout the galaxy." Admiral Kyung-soo ignored the threat. "All ships target the lead battleships. Fire when ready." 12 human ships opened fire simultaneously. Their railguns launched projectiles too fast for normal sensors to track. The tungsten slugs streaked across space at tremendous speed, covering the distance to the Draconic fleet in seconds. The first salvo hit 3 Draconic battleships. The results were unlike anything either side had expected. The energy shields that protected the alien ships flickered briefly and then disappeared. The railgun projectiles passed through the defensive barriers as if they didn't exist. Solid tungsten moving at significant fractions of light speed struck armored hulls with incredible force. The first battleship exploded instantly. The kinetic energy from multiple railgun hits tore the massive vessel apart from the inside. Metal fragments scattered in all directions as internal systems overloaded and detonated. The second ship lasted 3 seconds longer. Its hull cracked along structural weak points as the railgun slugs punched completely through the ship from front to back. Atmosphere and debris fountained from dozens of holes before the ship broke into burning pieces. The third battleship managed to send a desperate transmission before it died. "Shields are useless. The projectiles are going right through them." Commander Grakvash stared in shock at his tactical display. 3 of his most powerful ships had been destroyed by the opening shots from primitive kinetic weapons. "Impossible. Energy shields deflect all physical matter." "Sir," his weapons officer reported with fear in his voice, "our shields are calibrated for energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, particle beams. They redirect energy and absorb heat. But these solid projectiles just pass through." The human fleet continued firing. Each railgun discharge sent tungsten projectiles racing toward Draconic ships at speeds that made traditional defensive systems worthless. Point defense lasers couldn't track targets moving so fast. Interceptor missiles couldn't catch projectiles that crossed the engagement zone in fractions of a second. On the planet below, scientist Ye Jin recorded everything through her observation equipment. She had been studying alien technology for months, trying to understand how their defensive systems worked. Now she watched those same systems fail catastrophically against human weapons. The energy shields create barriers against plasma and particle weapons, she spoke into her recording device. But kinetic projectiles at relativistic speeds behave differently. They carry so much momentum that they punch through energy barriers without being affected. The space battle became a massacre. Draconic ships tried to return fire with their plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes, but human vessels were built differently than other galactic ships. Their hulls were designed to absorb and deflect kinetic impacts, not energy weapons. Some draconic shots found their targets. The human ship UN Courage took a direct hit from a plasma cannon and lost its forward sections. But even damaged human vessels kept fighting, their railgun batteries continuing to fire at maximum rate. Admiral Kyung-soo coordinated his fleet's attack with practiced efficiency. Target their command ships first. Take out their coordination and the rest will fall apart. The draconic fleet tried to adapt. Some ships attempted ramming attacks, thinking they could at least damage human vessels through direct collision. But human point defense systems, designed to stop fast-moving projectiles, easily tracked and destroyed approaching ships with precise railgun fire. Commander Grak Vash watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds exploded under the impact of simple tungsten slugs. His most experienced captains sent panicked messages as their defensive systems proved completely useless. All ships retreat to minimum safe distance, he ordered. We need to analyze these weapons and develop countermeasures. But the human fleet didn't let them withdraw. Admiral Kyung-soo pressed his advantage, moving his ships forward to maintain effective firing range. They came here to destroy our homes. We don't let them leave to try again. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, 96 draconic ships had been destroyed. The surviving 21 vessels fled the system in complete disorder, many of them badly damaged. The human fleet had lost 2 ships and suffered damage to 5 others. Not a single draconic soldier had set foot on New Sol's surface. Commander Haewon emerged from the defensive bunkers as the all-clear signal sounded. Above her, debris from destroyed alien ships streaked across the sky like shooting stars. The most feared military force in the galaxy had been shattered by weapons their enemies considered primitive toys. Scientist Ye Jin compiled her battle recordings and prepared her report. The galaxy was about to learn that technological advancement didn't always mean better weapons. Sometimes the oldest ideas, perfected and applied with precision, could defeat the most sophisticated defenses. News of the battle spread quickly through galactic communication networks. For the first time in centuries, a major draconic fleet had been completely defeated. The species responsible for this impossible victory were the same humans that the Galactic Council had dismissed as primitive metal throwers. The siege of New Sol was over, but its consequences would reshape the balance of power across the entire galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began 3 days after news of the draconic defeat reached civilized space. Council leader Thex 9 sat in his high chair, looking more confused than anyone had ever seen him. Around the chamber, delegates whispered in dozens of languages about the impossible battle reports. Dr. Xiong Ho walked into the council chamber carrying a simple briefcase. Behind him, researcher Bo Ram held a datapad filled with technical specifications that the galaxy had ignored for months. They were the same humans who had tried to demonstrate railgun technology during first contact, only to be laughed out of the chamber. The council recognizes Dr. Xiong Ho of Earth, Thex 9 announced. His voice carried none of its usual arrogance. We have questions about recent events in the New Sol system. General Vex Kai looked smaller than before. His forearms crossed defensively as he spoke. Doctor, our military analysts cannot understand the battle recordings. Draconic shields should have protected their ships from kinetic weapons. There must be some mistake in the data. Xiong Ho opened his briefcase and removed the same demonstration railgun that the council had dismissed months ago. The simple metal device looked exactly as harmless as before. But now every delegate in the chamber stared at it with new respect. There is no mistake, General. Your analysts don't understand because they've never seen kinetic weapons used properly. Xiong Ho connected the device to a portable power source. May I demonstrate what you refused to watch before? A nervous silence filled the chamber. The same aliens who had walked out during humanity's first presentation now leaned forward in their seats. desperate to understand how their greatest military threat had been destroyed by primitive weapons. Bo-Ram activated a holographic display showing the physics behind railgun technology. Mathematical equations floated in the air, describing electromagnetic acceleration and kinetic energy transfer. Energy shields work by redirecting or absorbing incoming energy, she explained. Plasma weapons, particle beams, laser cannons, all of these can be stopped by creating opposite energy fields. But kinetic weapons don't work that way, Xiang Ho continued. He loaded a small tungsten pellet into the demonstration railgun. We don't shoot energy at you. We accelerate matter to extreme velocities. When a solid object moving at 30% of light speed hits your ship, energy shields simply cannot respond fast enough. A Nexari collective member's dome flashed with rapid calculations. The kinetic energy formula shows, this is impossible. Such velocities would require enormous power systems. Exactly, Bo-Ram smiled grimly. While your species focused on making energy weapons more sophisticated, humans spent centuries perfecting electromagnetic acceleration. Our ships carry fusion reactors specifically designed to power railgun systems. Xiang Ho aimed the small demonstration device at a test target the Council had provided. This model fires at only a fraction of our military railgun's capacity. Watch carefully. The device fired with a barely audible hum. The tungsten pellet struck the target and passed completely through it, leaving a perfectly round hole. The test material was the same composite armor used on draconic battleships. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Delegates who had laughed at human technology now understood why the galaxy's most feared military force had been annihilated. The projectile velocity creates kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon, Bo-Ram explained as her holographic display showed the impact calculations. But instead of an explosion that shields can absorb or redirect, it's focused into a tiny point of unstoppable force. General Vexkai stood up shakily. How many of these weapons do your ships carry? Our destroyers mount 12 railgun batteries each, Xiang Ho replied. Cruisers carry 24. Our battleships have 48 railgun systems. Impossible, whispered a Crystalline Syndicate delegate. The power requirements would be enormous. Less than you think, Bo-Ram said. Railguns are actually very efficient. Most of the energy goes into accelerating the projectile. There's no waste heat from plasma generation or particle beam focusing systems. Council Leader Thex-9 finally found his voice. Dr. Xiang Ho, are you saying that human ships can destroy any vessel in the galaxy? Any vessel protected by energy-based defensive systems, yes. Xiang Ho packed the demonstration railgun back into his briefcase. Your shields, armor plating, and point defense systems are all designed to stop energy weapons. They're useless against high-velocity kinetic projectiles. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Every species present had fleets protected by the same type of energy shields that had failed so catastrophically against human weapons. Their most advanced warships were suddenly obsolete. What about our own kinetic weapons? Asked a desperate Valerian delegate. We have mass drivers and particle accelerators. Your kinetic weapons fire at velocities measured in kilometers per second, Bo-Ram explained patiently. Our railguns achieve velocities measured in significant fractions of light speed. The energy difference is like comparing a thrown rock to a nuclear bomb. A younger Nexari scientist's dome pulsed with frantic calculations. The electromagnetic field strength required. The power coupling efficiency. How long have humans been developing this technology? About 400 years, Xiang Ho replied. We started with simple magnetic acceleration systems for launching spacecraft. Over time, we improved the efficiency and power until we could accelerate small projectiles to extreme velocities. 400 years? General Vexkai sank back into his chair. We've been developing energy weapons for 3,000 years, and you surpassed us with technology you consider basic? Not basic, Bo-Ram corrected. Fundamental. We took a simple concept, accelerating matter with electromagnetic fields, and perfected it. Sometimes the oldest ideas work best when you have centuries to improve them. The chamber filled with uncomfortable silence as the full scope of the problem became clear. The Galactic Confederation's entire military doctrine was based on energy weapons and energy-based defenses. Human railguns made both concepts obsolete overnight. Thex-9 spoke carefully as if the words might explode. Dr. Xiang Ho, what does humanity want from the Confederation? The same thing we wanted 6 months ago, Xiang Ho replied. recognition trade agreements, and mutual defense treaties. The difference is that now you understand what we bring to those agreements. And if we refuse? The question came from a draconic hegemony survivor who had barely escaped the New Soul battle. Sung Ho's expression remained neutral. Humanity has no interest in conquest. We defend our colonies and protect our allies. But the galaxy has seen what happens to those who threaten human settlements. The session continued for hours as delegates asked increasingly desperate questions about defensive countermeasures. Could thicker armor stop railgun projectiles? Could faster shields respond to kinetic weapons? Could point defense systems track high-velocity targets? The answers were uniformly discouraging. Human railgun technology had evolved specifically to overcome every type of defense the galaxy had developed. Thicker armor just meant heavier ships that were easier to track. Faster shields still couldn't redirect solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. Point defense systems couldn't target projectiles that crossed engagement zones in milliseconds. As the session ended, every species present faced the same terrifying reality. The humans they had dismissed as primitives possessed the most advanced military technology in known space. The balance of galactic power had shifted in a single battle, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Ambassador Hyunwoo sat in the same council chamber where aliens had laughed at human weapons 8 months ago. But everything had changed. The seats once filled with arrogant delegates now held nervous representatives who spoke to him with careful respect. The Valerian Empire's new ambassador, a younger diplomat named Corven, approached Hyunwoo's platform with obvious anxiety. Behind him walked General Vex Kai, the same four-armed warrior who had mocked human railguns. Now the general looked defeated and desperate. Ambassador Hyunwoo, Corven began formally. The Valerian Empire requests a formal defense treaty with humanity. Our borders face increasing draconic raids, and our plasma weapons have proven insufficient. Hyunwoo reviewed the treaty proposal on his datapad. The terms were generous, very generous. Trade agreements that heavily favored human colonies, technology sharing that gave Earth access to advanced alien science, and military cooperation that placed human commanders in charge of joint operations. Your proposal is acceptable, Hyunwoo replied, but we require one addition. Valerian ships operating with human forces must install railgun systems manufactured on Earth. General Vex Kai stepped forward, his pride clearly wounded, but his desperation stronger. Ambassador, our weapons engineers have studied your railgun technology. The electromagnetic field generators require precision manufacturing that our industrial systems cannot match. Then you'll purchase them from us, Hyunwoo said simply. Along with the tungsten ammunition, replacement parts, and maintenance services. The same pattern repeated with delegation after delegation. The Nexari Collective offered to share their advanced computer systems in exchange for railgun protection. The Crystalline Syndicate wanted to trade their energy manipulation technology for human defensive treaties. Even the proud Zephyrian Council, led by Thex 9 himself, came requesting military cooperation. Colonel Jun Ho stood in the military briefing room on Kepler Station, addressing a mixed group of human and alien officers. The first joint training exercise was about to begin, and he needed to explain human warfare tactics to species that had never seen them before. Traditional galactic warfare relies on energy weapon exchanges at long range, Jun Ho explained to the gathered officers. Ships fire plasma cannons and particle beams until one side's shields fail. Combat can last for hours or even days. A Valerian captain raised one of his forearms. How do human tactics differ, Colonel? Speed and precision, Jun Ho replied. Railgun projectiles travel so fast that battle ranges shrink dramatically. We fire, hit the target, and move to the next one. Most engagements end in minutes. He activated a holographic display showing human ship formations. Our vessels are built for mobility and rapid firing. We don't stay in one place exchanging shots. We strike hard and keep moving. A Nexari officer's dome pulsed with curiosity. What about defensive formations? How do you protect ships that cannot rely on energy shields? Armor and evasion, Jun Ho explained. Human ships have thick hulls designed to absorb kinetic impacts. But our main defense is not being where the enemy expects us to be when their shots arrive. The training exercises began the next day. Human and alien ships worked together in simulated battles against mock draconic forces. The results were revealing and often embarrassing for the galactic powers. Alien captains who had commanded warships for decades found themselves helpless without energy shields to rely on. Their ships were too slow to use human mobility tactics and too lightly armored to survive direct hits. Most importantly, their weapon systems were useless at the ranges where railgun combat took place. "Your plasma cannons take several seconds to charge and fire," explained Captain Sujin to a frustrated Crystalline Syndicate commander. "In that time, a human ship can fire 6 railgun volleys and change position twice. By the time your weapon is ready, we're no longer where you're aiming." The alien officer's crystalline body flickered with confused colors. "How do we adapt our tactics to work with your weapons?" "You don't," Sujin replied honestly. "Your ships become support vessels. You provide sensor data, electronic warfare capabilities, and logistical support. Human ships handle direct combat." Word of humanity's military dominance spread quickly through the galaxy. Species that had never heard of Earth suddenly wanted to establish diplomatic relations. Trade requests flooded human embassy offices. Most importantly, defense treaty applications arrived daily from worlds afraid of draconic retaliation. So Young, now promoted to Galactic Defense Coordinator, worked from a new office on the renovated Kepler station. Her responsibilities had expanded far beyond anything she had imagined during first contact. She coordinated defense fleets across dozens of star systems and managed military aid to species that had once dismissed human capabilities. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Wu Jin from his communications station, "we have 3 more requests for railgun installation on Allied ships. The Nexari want systems for 12 vessels. The Zephyrians need defensive upgrades for their border patrol fleet, and the Valerians are asking about railgun platforms for their space stations." So Young studied the production schedules on her displays. Human shipyards worked around the clock to meet galactic demand for railgun technology. Every major species wanted the weapons that could penetrate any defense, but human manufacturing capacity was limited. "Approve the Nexari request. They've been reliable allies. Tell the Zephyrians they're third in the production queue after the Crystalline Syndicate. For the Valerians, offer them a joint manufacturing agreement. They can build the platforms if we provide the railgun systems." The economic impact of humanity's military dominance was staggering. Human colonies that had struggled to attract trade investment suddenly found themselves at the center of galactic commerce. Earth's industrial capacity expanded rapidly to meet demand for railgun technology, tungsten ammunition, and the specialized components that made electromagnetic acceleration possible. Dr. Ne Yun published her research paper on kinetic weapon effectiveness, titled "The Return of Fundamental Physics: Why Kinetic Energy Defeats Energy Shields." The document became required reading at every military academy in the galaxy. Her analysis showed mathematically why human weapons were superior, and why traditional galactic defenses had failed so completely. "Energy weapons create elaborate solutions to simple problems," she wrote in her conclusion. "Humans solved the same problems by accelerating matter to extreme velocities. Sometimes the most advanced technology is the one that perfects basic principles rather than complicating them." The draconic hegemony, once the galaxy's most feared military force, found itself isolated and desperate. Their surviving fleets avoided any system with human protection. Several draconic worlds surrendered to human-led coalitions rather than face railgun bombardment. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries now lived in constant fear of tungsten projectiles moving at light-speed fractions. Ambassador Hyunwoo received a personal message from Council Leader Thex-9, requesting a private meeting. They met in the same observation lounge where Hyunwoo had first seen the magnificent Galactic station. "Ambassador," Thex-9 began, his gray features showing something that might have been embarrassment, "I owe you an apology. When your species first demonstrated railgun technology, I dismissed it as primitive. I was wrong. You were following your experience," Hyunwoo replied diplomatically. "Energy weapons have dominated galactic warfare for thousands of years. It's natural that you would see kinetic weapons as obsolete. Natural, perhaps, but arrogant and foolish. Thex-9 looked out at the busy docking bays where human ships now outnumbered all other vessels combined. Humanity has taught the galaxy a valuable lesson about assumptions and technological prejudice. The meeting ended with formal agreements that made humanity a permanent member of the Galactic Council's ruling committee. The species once dismissed as primitive metal throwers now held veto power over galactic policy and commanded the most powerful military force in known space. As Hyunwoo watched the stars through the observation window, he reflected on the strange path that had brought humanity to this position. The galaxy had judged human weapons by their appearance rather than their capabilities. That single error in judgment had reshuffled the balance of power across thousands of star systems. The age of energy weapon dominance was over. The age of human kinetic warfare had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.